Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are doing a deck tech for Shroofus, Sproutsire. Shroofus is a 3-mana 1/1 legendary Saproling. He has Trample, and then whenever a Saproling you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens. This is some mono green Saproling tribal. So why play Shroofus? Just look at him. Look at that dude. He's got weird human feet, he's got all those little buddies around him. But more importantly, so he is a 1/1 with Trample. You put counters on him, you make him bigger with various other board state buffs that we can give to him, so then he is swinging in for more than just one. He also practically doubles your creatures every single combat, so whenever he attacks, let's say we're going to make a 1/1, and then since new creatures also trigger off this effect because you're making Saprolings, let's say you attack with him, you make a 1/1. You attack with him and your new Saproling, each for 1 damage, you make 2 1/1s, and so on and so forth. So mono green is also just really good as a monocolor option, just because you have so many options with versatility, ramp, power, creature viability. There's a whole lot of options that you can really do. There's card draw. There's like mono green really does everything. Here's the game plan. We don't need them. Awkwardly, we're still just mono green guys. Like, we can still make a lot of dudes, make a lot of tokens. At the end of the day, we're still a Saproling tribal deck. We're just missing out on our big man himself. So we still can win. We just, like, ideally want him around. Early game, we just want to ramp out a little bit or try to make little small Saprolings and just get down our utility guys, which I'll mention in a moment. Mid-game, we want to play Shroofus, obviously, and then attack with our current board to make more Saprolings. So the idea is, let's say we have like 2 Saprolings on the field already, and then we play Shroofus, say turn 4 or whatever. We attack with those 2 Saprolings. They connect. We make 2 more Saprolings. It's great. Then late game, we just want to play big effects to really buff our team and then win through beating down. Say, for example, giving Shroofus like +3/+3. He's now a 4/4 with Trample, and then we'll make 4 more dudes. Or let's say we're like, all Saprolings get +2/+2 or whatever, and now everyone swings for 3, and then we're going to get a bunch of guys back. So it's pretty good. Channel and deck stuff. This deck costs about $4.47 at the making of the video. Take it with a grain of salt, because as always, there are cards you can just cut to make the deck way cheaper. As always, the spoiler card is Nykthos, Shrine the Nyx. It's a monocolor staple. It's also like $40. Get rid of Nykthos. It's now 400. It's literally like I'm not good at math. I'm not going to give a percentage, but it's still a good chunk. Get the cards you need from the link down below, and then as always, like, comment, and especially subscribe to the channel. It always helps me out, and I appreciate it. Let's get into it. Planeswalkers. Nissa, Ascended Animist, and Nissa, Who Shakes the World. Nissa, Ascended Animist can come down for 5 mana or 5 mana and 4 life or 7 mana, or you guys know Phyrexian. You can either plus her to make an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token. That X is her loyalty. So if she comes in, let's just say raw value, 7 mana, we're going nuts. We'll make an 8/8, or we can pop an artifact or enchantment, or ideally, she's good at any point in the game, right? If we play her for 7 mana, we can just minus her 7, and then until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and trample for each forest you control. We make a lot of tokens. We make a lot of Saprolings. We just kind of go nuts. So we make them all like plus, at this point, let's say in a vacuum, +7/+7 trample, so they're all at least 8/8s with trample. That'll kill someone. She's good really at any point. We can play her for 5, make a dude, pop an artifact or whatever. She's good removal either way. Nissa, Who Shakes the World, is more or less just a mono green staple. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green. Just raw value, she is a mana doubler. You can then also put 3 1/1 counters on up to 1 target non-creature land you control, untap it, and then it becomes a 3/3 with Vigilance and Haste until end of turn. It's also just good to untap our lands. We tap them down for 2, untap it, tap it again. Basically net 4 mana off of that exchange if we'd like. And then we can get all the, basic forests in our deck and then just put them on the field if we like. It's really, really here just for the doubling up our forest, because we are just a mono green deck. Going into the creatures, we have Adaptive Automaton. When he enters battlefield, he's a Saproling. He's a Saproling in addition to his other types. And then other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So he's kind of nice because we play him, let's say we play Shroofus on turn 3, right? Shroofus is a 1/1. Turn 4, we play Adaptive Automaton. We say Saproling. Shroofus is now a 2/2. All of our other Saprolings are 2/2s. They swing in, and now since they're dealing 2 power, we get more 2/2s. Bright Cap Badger, we probably want to go on a Fungus Frolic real quick. Instant speed, just make 2 Saprolings. That's kind of how a lot of this deck works, right? It's just making quick little Saprolings and then beefing them up with like Adaptive Automaton effects or just various other get bigger effects. He then gives each Fungus and Saproling tapping for green, which is nice when he comes down, so he's kind of like a good mana dork. And then at the beginning of your end step, you just make a 1/1 Saproling. So really good, really good. Makes dudes, he makes more dudes, and then you can tap him for mana. Champion of Lambholt is not a Fungus or Saproling at all. We have a little bit of Fungus energy in this deck. Creatures with power less than Champion of Lambholt's power can't block creatures we control. And then whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we put a 1/1 counter on Champion of Lambholt. So the idea is Champion of Lambholt just becomes like, I don't know, even just like a 3/3. And that's already really good from 2 creatures entering because now all of our dudes are unblockable. And all of our guys are now hitting for 3, or let's say whatever. Or whatever. Even if they're not having any buffs, even just them hitting is bringing in a copy of them, which is great. Craterhoof Behemoth will just end the game. We make a lot of dudes. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Very worst case, it's an 8 mana 6/6 with haste and trample. That's it. Just kidding. But really, when we're going to enter the battlefield, we'll have like, I don't know, say 5 other guys. Now everything gets +6/+6, trample and haste. Just ends the game. Defiler of Vigor is really great. Trample, as an additional cost to cast green permanents, we can pay 2 life. Those spells cost a green less to cast, so it basically turns 1 color pip into Phyrexian, which is great because at this it's a cost reducer. And then whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. This is really good for the deck because the Saprolings, it's whenever they deal combat damage to a player, make that many Saprolings, where basically X is the damage dealt. So when we're putting more 1/1 counters on all of our Saprolings, we're just going to be making more and more Saprolings, which is great. And then they get bigger and bigger too. Fogcrawler is kind of insane. Trample. If damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage, put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. When he dies, or is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle him back. So the cool thing with Fogcrawler, right, is we don't care about, like, we don't have to worry about attacks, right, or our creatures dying in attacks. If we just full swing out, right, assuming it lives, however they block, our creatures aren't dying to combat damage anyways, and then they're just getting bigger. So it's like, if someone, like, I don't know, let's say we attack with a 1/1 Shroofus, and someone blocks with, like, a 3/3 dude or whatever, Shroofus is now getting 3 counters on him, and now he is a 4/4. So it's kind of, you have to pick what makes more sense. Do I want to take 1 damage and then have my opponent make a 1/1, or do I want to take 4 damage and then have them put 4 1/1 counters on this, so then next turn they're going to swing in for like 5. Forgotten Ancient, I really like the idea of, in this deck, particularly for Shroofus, whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a 1/1 counter on them, and then that's just whenever any player casts a spell, you put a single 1/1 counter on them. And then at the beginning of our upkeep, you may move any number of 1/1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. So you can just kind of disperse his 1/1 counters, which is really nice. I like the idea of loading them all up on the Shroofus, or just like a whatever Saproling. Really just because they're going to worry, say like another Saproling, right? Because they're just going to be worried about that big Saproling token and just kind of ignore Shroofus. And we kind of want Shroofus to live. So they're either going to have to deal with that big Saproling or Shroofus, ideally, not both. So we're either making a bunch of dudes, or they're just jump blocking one, and we're still making dudes regardless. Guardian Augmenter. Flash, commander creatures you control get +2/+2, and commanders you control have hexproof. He's practically a combat trick. So the way I imagine this guy going is we play Shroofus, then we go to next turn, we attack with Shroofus. Someone has a weird block, someone tries to kill him in response to, like, before damage, and then we can just basically say, nah, flash him out, give Shroofus, make him a 3/3, and then give him hexproof to fizzle any kind of kill spell, and then we just make 3 more Saprolings, so even more, which is very nice. Ivy Lane Denizen, whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it. Saprolings are just straight up green, so the idea is have Ivy Lane Denizen attack with Shroofus and the boys, make a bunch of more guys. They all enter with an additional 1/1 counter on them, so now they're 2/2s. So now when each of those deal combat damage, they're going to make 2 Saprolings instead of 1. It's pretty nice. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. Tokens you control just can tap for a green. We do make a lot of tokens, so the idea is just we can tap them for mana whenever we need it. The big worry about this deck is mana, right? We want to be able to do as much as we can, so it might even make some sense sometimes to be like, we're going to attack with like half of these guys that can attack, and we're going to tap these guys to just play other things like Metallic Mimic or Michaeloth, or even just ramping in any kind of capacity if there's no real good blocks or whatever. Metallic Mimic I love because it's such a good turn 2 play. When it enters the battlefield, say Saproling, it is a Saproling when it's on the field, and then each other creature you control that is a Saproling enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter. So turn 2, we play this. Turn 3, we play Shroofus. Shroofus now enters with the 1/1, so Shroofus is now a 2/2, and then we attack with Metallic Mimic, who is a Saproling, which is then going to deal 2 damage. Then it's going to make us 2 1/1s that each enter with a 1/1 counter on it. So on turn 3, we're having a 2/2 Shroofus and then 2 2/2 Saprolings enter the battlefield, which is really good setup for turn 4. Michaeloth is great. He has Devour 2, which is a nice old keyword. As this creature comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature comes into play with twice that many counters on it. So if we kill a Saproling, he enters as a 4/4, he enters as a 6/6 because he gets the 2 counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token into play for each 1/1 counter on Michaeloth. Here's how I imagine this guy going, right? I imagine on turn 5, we attack with Shroofus in the team. We make a couple Saprolings. We then eat some of the tapped Saprolings, and then he'll say, let's say he enters as an 8/8, right? Then we go to our next upkeep, and now we have 4 more 1/1s. Additionally, it doesn't matter how he gets the counters. He just makes a Saproling for each 1/1 counter on him on your upkeep. So we have cards like Defiler of Vigor that puts counters on everything, like we saw earlier. That'll then make Michaeloth trigger himself. Namada Grove Guardian. 6 mana 4/5, legendary tree folk. Just paying 3 mana, right? Create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Already fantastic. That's already good. Then, sacrifice a Saproling. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Or Saproling creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This is huge. Let's say we attack, we swing out with the team, right? Then our opponents block some of our Saprolings. In response to the blocks, we can say, okay, since those guys are going to die anyways, we're just going to sacrifice the block Saprolings to then increase the size of the other Saprolings. So even if like 2 guys get blocked, we'll be like, okay, those 2 guys are going to die anyway, sacrifice the 2, give the whole team +2/+2, and then hopefully if Shroofus is on the field, it's just going to replenish the guys that are lost anyways by way more. Orin Frostfang is great. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. No one wants to block a 1/1 with Death Touch. Shroofus has Trample and Death Touch is pretty good. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So again, it's really awkward for our opponent. It's like, okay, well, do I want to take 1 damage from the Saproling, or do I want to block it and trade creatures with it? Or do I want to lose my creature from a 1/1 Saproling, or do I want my opponent to connect? I lose 1 life, and then he makes another 1/1 and draws a card. So it's kind of like, we don't care either way. Ideally, we want to connect, but we'll trade in a 1/1 for a whatever their creature is, who cares? Psychotrope Thallid. This is a weird cycle of fungi. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on Psychotrope Thallid. Remove 3 Spore counters from Psychotrope Thallid. Put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token into play. Pay 1 mana, sacrifice a Saproling, draw a card. So here's the deal. I used to have a Slimefoot, the Stowaway deck, way back in the day, and I had all of these Thallid cards, the whole put Spore counter side, all of them. They're bad. They're straight up bad. They are not reliable for making Saprolings. What they are reliable for is when you have a bunch of Saprolings, they're fantastic. Paying 1 mana and sacrificing a Saproling, drawing a card, is fantastic. It's the same logic of Namada Grove Guardian is, okay, this guy's gonna die anyways, so I might as well just get value off of it, right? Or if we're in a pinch and we need removal or we need like an answer, we need something, right? Just paying 1 mana and getting rid of our many Saprolings is not that big of a deal. Roaming Throne has Ward 2. He enters the battlefield as a Saproling. He is a Saproling, and then if an ability of another creature you control's it triggers an additional time. It basically just doubles up Shroofus' ability, which is really nice. It's basically just having 2 Shroofus. 2 Shroofi. Spore Count Valid, short, sweet, to the point, enters the battlefield, when it enters the battlefield, doesn't have any ability, what am I saying that? Fungus and other Saprolings get +1/+1. That's just good. I mean, just making Shroofus a 2/2, like, it sounds kind of lame, but when Shroofus is a 2/2 with Trample and he's connecting, and then we're making 2 more 2/2s off of that, is really good. Tendershoe Dryad is an absolute all-star in this deck. Ascend, if you have 10 or more permanents, you've ascended. You're in Commander, that's almost always going to happen. At the beginning of each upkeep, not just ours, everyone's upkeep, we're going to make a 1/1. Saprolings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. So every upkeep, we're functionally making a 3/3. This is, at the very worst, Shroofus is now just a 3/3 trample that's going to make more 3/3s. Thallid Germinator, it has the whole fungus do a spore counter. Don't ignore that, it doesn't matter. Sacrifice a Saproling, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Again, the same logic is this thing's going to die anyways, and that is okay. If it's going to get blocked, I would rather remove that blocking damage and then make Shroofus an extra damage, or make another Saproling 1 extra damage, so then we're making 1 more Saproling off that, when rather instead that guy would have been blocked and died, we're now just getting more value. Thelianote, I'm not even going to attempt it. Make fun of me in the comments. That's fine. Thelianite. I think I got it. Hermit. 4 mana 1/1, that's terrible. All Saprolings get +1/+1. Now that's pretty good. It has Morph, right? So you can cast this card face down as a 2/2 for 3 mana, just 3 generic mana, and then you can pay that green 3, that 5 cost, whenever you feel like it. When he's turned face up, you make 4 1/1s, which are now functionally 4 2/2s. So it's pretty good if we want to hard cast him. It's just a Lord, which is good, or we want to morph him and do something later with him, which is also fine. Thunderfoot Baloth, 5/5 for 6 mana with Trample. It has Lieutenant, which is a nice exclusive thing to Commander stuff. As long as you control your Commander, Thunderfoot Baloth gets +2/+2, and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and Trample. The idea is we always have Shroofus, so just him giving all of our other guys +2/+2 and Trample is really good. If we're not connecting for the full damage, that's okay, because we're still making that many 1/1s. Like, we still want to hit for as much as possible, but it's more important to make any amount of 1/1s than no amount of 1/1s. And it's okay if they die or trade, because they're ultimately going to replace themselves. Toski Barris Secrets is he's not a fungus or a Saproling at all. He's a squirrel. Indestructible, uncounterable. He attacks each combat if able. Not really a big deal. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, we draw a card, which is great because he lets us draw a lot of cards, and we're already wanting to attack every combat if able, so that's fine. Utopian Icon is a fungus that has a whole spore counter on it. Ignore that top part. Don't ignore it. It's relevant, but it's just like, in 3 turns, make a 1/1. That's kind of how you read them. They're not good. But the bottom effect is very good. Sacrifice a Saproling, add 1 mana of any color. That's just good. I mean, that's like a good post-combat stuff. Whatever, we can start sacrificing some of the dudes we made if we made an excess of dudes to start casting bigger spells and doing other stuff. Like casting Verdant Force. 8 mana, 7/7, elemental. At the beginning of each upkeep, every upkeep, not just ours, make a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. So we don't just need to attack with Shroofus to make these guys. It's just, we can just make a lot of Saprolings in multiple other ways. Verdaloth the Ancient, 6 mana 4/7, which is so weird because he's an old card. Kicker X, Saproling creatures and other tree folk creatures get +1/+1. When Verdaloth the Ancient enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, make X 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens. So he's just good. He's kind of like, what was that other card? It doesn't matter. He's kind of, Thelanite Hermit. I keep saying it right now. Maybe, I don't know. he's good either point, like any time in the game. I guess not early game, but you're either just hard casting him for 6 and you now have a Lord, which is good because you're making more guys, or you're casting him for 6 plus and you're still getting a Lord on top of making a bunch of dudes. Zopendrel Hunger Dominus. Reach at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control. Sacrifice 2 other creatures for 4 life and put an indestructible counter on him, which is already good. The idea with him is just beginning of each combat, double up everyone, which is really, really good because now even if Shroofus, at worst, let's say the teams are all 1/1s, they're now 2/2s. If they're 2/2s, they're now 4/4s. So it kind of, we're just doubling up everything. The more power we have, the more Saprolings we get. Going into sorceries, we just have Explore, just draw a card, play an additional land. It's fine. It's good early game. It's really good early game, so we can drop down a 3rd land, so we can have 4 mana on turn 3, which is good, and then we draw a card, which is always nice because it replaces itself. And even late game, we can play this, we can just draw a card to replace it for 2 mana. That's not that big of a deal. Natural Order is nice as an additional cost. Sacrifice a green creature. That's going to be a Saproling. Search your deck for a green creature card and put it onto the battlefield. These are the kind of cards that we're going to get. We're going to get like Tendershoot Dryad. We're going to get like Verdant Force. We're going to get Zopendrel. We're going to get our biggest guys for essentially 4 mana and killing off 1 Saproling. Nature's Lore, just search your deck for a basic forest, put it onto the battlefield. It's functionally 1 mana because in this deck we don't have any funny forests. We just have basics. For 2 mana, you're just searching your deck for an untapped forest. So it's essentially just 1 mana is how I look at it. Overrun, short, sweet, to the point. 5 mana. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. This is just how we're gonna kill people. Like Overrun, like when you're casting Overrun, very rarely is someone not dying. Saproling Symbiosis, you may cast it as though it had flash if you paid 2 more. So it's either 4 mana on your turn or 6 mana at some other time. Create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token for each creature you control. This is good. I guess on our turn, if we want to try to bait out a board wipe or whatever, we could do that. Or ideally, we're just up, end of your turn, we had 6 mana open, we flash it out, we make a ton of dudes, and then we just play Overrun on that turn, and then we kill everyone. Shamanic Revelation is nice. Just draw a card for each creature you control. We can gain 4 life. That's fine. I'm not really too worried about us taking a lot of damage from blocking, just because whenever we attack and we're dealing damage, we're kind of replacing, we're just adding more untapped dudes that can block. So it's kind of like, the way I imagine it is our opponents wouldn't want to attack us a lot because we're just going to chump it with a 1/1. And that's what we're going to do. And they know that's what we're going to do. So life isn't really super relevant. We're just drawing a ton of cards. 3 Visits is the same thing as Nature Lore. And Triumph of the Hordes is just ending the game. Until end of turn, all your guys get +1/+1 and gain Trample and Infect. We play this at almost any point in the game. Maybe not turn 4. Really maybe turn 5 and onward. It's game over, at least for 1 player. Like, Infect's going to kill someone, all we have to do is 10 damage. Going into Instance, Beast Within, get rid of something we don't like. They can have a 3/3 Beast. Worst case scenario, they block one of our guys, and then we'll just do the whole sacrifice of Saproling to do an effect. Collective Resistance, we can escalate it, but normally just cost 1. I like this because it's modal, and we get to do what makes sense, or we can do the whole full Monty. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or target creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is really, if someone has a problematic artifact, get rid of it. Same thing for enchantment. Or if someone tries to kill Shroofus or whatever, he's living. Like, he's going to be hard to kill after that. And it's nice because ideally we just pay like more than just the 2 mana ability. Like, ideally we're just doing as much as we can. Get a Leg Up is nice. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and gains reach. The reach is not really relevant because, unless we're on the defense, but still, it's just, we're going to attack, say with Shroofus or whatever, or a Saproling. No one blocked. Let's say no one blocked a Saproling. We're like, okay, that dude's now like +10/+10. We're going to get 10 more dudes. Like, it's just nice. Heroic Intervention. It's really just to stop board wipes because we really wouldn't like someone to nuke our board because it's going to be hard to get back. Might of the Masses is just kind of the same thing as Get a Leg Up. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. So it's just kind of, someone didn't block. We're now just going to hit them for 10 and then make 10 more guys. And 10's probably an understatement. Overprotect is really good. Target creature gets +3/+3 trample, hexproof, and indestructible. So these kind of cards are really meant for the Hexproof and indestructible cards are meant for Shroofus. The Might of the Masses and the Get the Leg Up cards are just kind of meant for a random Saproling, because the worst case scenario is we target Shroofus for a lot of damage, and then someone just kills him, and now we're out Shroofus and the doubling ability. But if we just do it on a Saproling, if they just kill that Saproling, it's no big deal. Like, we paid 1 mana for this, and it was just a Saproling token. Overprotect is for Shroofus, because if someone tries to kill him, he's now hexproof, indestructible, and this one just makes him a little bit bigger. Return of the Wild Speaker is a nice, it's good utility either way, right? Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Or, non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. So, this is either we're attacking, we're ideally almost always doing the bottom ability. We attack out with, like, you don't know, like 10 guys. Someone doesn't block. We say, okay, well now everything's like a 4/4 at least. And then it kills someone. Or in a pinch, we can just draw a lot of cards. We don't think we have like any, or at least many humans in the deck. Sprout Swarm is such a good card. Convoke, buy back 3, put a 1/1 into play. I know that sounds so bad and lame for functionally 5 mana, but think about it, right? It's an instant. We can do it on, let's say we're in a 4-person pod, right? Opponent A goes, B goes, C goes. On the end of opponent C's turn before our turn, we're just like, okay, I'm going to pay 5 mana, and I'm going to make, or we're just going to tap 5 of our untapped guys we got from the prior combat with Shroofus, and then we're going to make a 1/1, and then we're going to tap that 1/1 we just made, and then we're going to just keep tapping down our guys, always netting 1 guy off of it and keeping this in our hand, because we're not really going to pay mana for this. We're just going to keep tapping down the Saprolings that we keep making, for even more Saprolings, which is nice. Tyvar Stand is another card just to keep Shroofus safe. Another card just for a Saproling. If we want to make it big, give it hexproof and indestructible, and we can make it large, which is just nice. You know, just someone tries to kill something, it doesn't happen, and instead this guy is for 1 mana either hexproof or indestructible, or for 1 mana plus it's +X/+X. And then the final card is just Rapid Vigor. Regenerate each creature. If someone just has like a quick board wipe or whatever that doesn't say it can't regenerate each creature, our guys are kind of safe. Regenerate is kind of weird. Regenerate functionally reads, if you're not familiar, because it is an old keyword, and I think they're not even using it anymore. Wizards isn't. It basically just reads, the next time this creature would be destroyed, tap it, and it gains indestructible, and remove it from combat. That's exactly how it reads. That's it. Just tap it, give it indestructible, and remove it from combat. Going into artifacts, we have Arcane Signet just because it's good. Banner of Kinship. As this artifact enters the battlefield, say Saproling. This artifact enters with a fellowship counter on it for each Saproling you control, and then Saproling creatures get +1/+1 for each counter on it. So the idea is, I don't know, we have 5 Saprolings. Okay, we play Banner of Kinship. It has 5 fellowship counters on it. All of our Saprolings get +5/+5. Works for me. Blackblade Reforged. I like the idea for Shroofus just because I think it's so funny. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. We're mono green. We're not worried about mana or lands. Equip legendary creature. So if we have like, I don't know, let's even say let's say we play this on turn 5. We have 5 mana. An equipped creature, Shroofus, is now +5/+5. He's a 6/6 with trample. We're going to get 6 more guys. We're not going to equip almost anything without it, but just the fact that Shroofus has evasion with the trample and can get really big is nice. Bow of Nylea, attacking creatures you control at death touch, which is good. I think that's really annoying for our opponents to deal with. The same kind of logic as we're attacking with a 1/1 or a 2/2. Do you want to trade your guy for our 2/2 token? Probably not. And then whenever we want, just pay 2 mana and tap it, choose one of them. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature, which is nice just to now just make an extra Saproling. Bow of Nylea deals 2 damage to a target creature with flying. We gain 3 life, or put 4 target cards from your graveyard onto the bottom of our library in any order. I really think, I mean, obviously we're just using it for the attacking creatures have death touch, but I think just putting a 1/1 counter on something would be nice. Or in a pinch, if we need to gain 3 life, is also not bad. Eldrazi Monument. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and have flying and indestructible. That's straight up amazing. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. If you can't, sacrifice Eldrazi Monument. That straight up hardly matters. The fact that all of our guys get +1/+1 and have evasion and are indestructible it doesn't matter if we're killing a 1, because we're already getting that back when we attack with Shroofus anyways. Like, it's so negligible, because even just like if we have 5 guys, that additional +1/+1 is going to get us, say, 10 creatures. Oh, we have to sacrifice 1. We now only have 9 2/2s with flying and indestructible to attack. Emerald Medallion is good. Just green creatures. You cast costs 1 less. It's good. It's a big cost reducer. We're mono green. Heraldic Banner is nice. When it enters a battlefield, choose a color. It's going to be green. Creatures you control the chosen color get +1/+0, which is nice because now since they're dealing more damage, we're getting more Saprolings, and it's just a mana rock. Idol of Oblivion, draw a card if you made a token. Activate this only if you made a token. We're going to be doing that practically every single turn. I think almost regardless if Shroofus is on the field or not. So we're going to be drawing functionally 2 every turn when we have this on the battlefield. There's really no reason to pay 8 mana and sacrifice it to make a 10/10. It just doesn't. Drawing the cards is more important. Like, if we have 8 mana open and someone's going to destroy it, we could make it 10/10. Like, that's like the only reasonable way. Is we got nothing else to do. We're flooding out and someone wants to destroy it anyway. We make it 10/10. Other than that, we're drawing cards every turn. Lightning Greaves is good and bad. Lightning Greaves is to give Shroofus protection. Now, I know it kind of sounds backwards because we have a lot of pump spells that are meant to protect Shroofus, but if he has Shroud anyway, he should be protected. This is really just to keep him safe. We don't have to attack with Shroofus. Like, we can still just beat down with other Saprolings to keep getting more Saprolings. This is just like when things are looking sketchy. And at the very worst, even if things aren't looking sketchy, it'll give Shroofus haste when he comes down, which is still nice. Masquerade Nexus. Creatures you control are every creature type. It's just everything is now a Saproling, and we can pay 3 mana to make a 2/2 Saproling. Really a Changeling, but it's a Saproling, it's fine. Has Changeling. So that's still good because a 2/2 Saproling will make 2 more Saprolings with Shroofus, which is good. Patchwork Banner, choose a creature type, Saproling, tap it for any mana of any color. It's kind of just better Heraldic Banner in a way. Just this is tribal rather than just like color. Skull Clamp is good. Whenever a equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. It gives a creature +1/-1. Since they start as 1/1s, that's fine. It's usually just pay 1 mana to kill a creature and draw 2 cards. Even if they're not 1/1s and they're like 2/2s if we have a Lord ability or whatever, say Patchwork Banner's on the field and Skull Clamp, then we have all those like fungus abilities that are like, yep, you sacrifice a creature anyways to do whatever miscellaneous effect. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. It's the last artifact. Always run Soul Ring. Going into enchantments, we have Beastmaster's Ascension. Beastmaster's Ascension is 3 mana. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on it. We're pretty much always going to do that. As long as it has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control gain +5/+5. So this all happens pre-blockers. If we attack with 7 creatures, or just cumulatively, we attack with up 3 creatures, then we attack with 4 creatures, all of our guys are just going to be +5/+5. So when they're all swinging in for at least 6 damage, that just kills someone. Fungal Plots is nice. Just exile a creature from a graveyard to make a Saproling. It kind of hoses down like Reanimator decks. It's always a good idea to have some form of Grave Hate in all of the decks you make. And then just whenever we want, sacrifice 2 Saprolings, gain 2 life, and draw a card. This is nice when the inevitable happens. This is nice when someone's going to wipe the board and we can't do anything about it, so we can sacrifice our team to gain a bunch of life and draw a bunch of cards. Or this is just kind of the same logic of, we attacked, they got blocked, they're going to die anyway, might as well gain some life and draw a card. Song of the Dryads is probably the best permanent removal we have, quote-unquote removal. Just enchanted permanent, it's a forest. It's just a forest. It can't do anything. It loses all its abilities. It can tap for green, but we don't have a ton of ways to, like... I mean, we have, like, ways to deal with everything, but if something's, like, problematic, this is probably, like, the easiest one-shot way, other than, like, Beast Within to get rid of something. The final 2 enchantments we have are Sylvan Anthem, 2 mana, green creatures you control get +1/+1. We're a mono green deck, so that's basically everything, except like Adaptive Automaton and Metallic Mimic. And then whenever a green creature enters the battlefield under our control, scry 1. This is going to be really good because when we're attacking and let's say making like, I don't know, say 5 dudes from a combat, definitely more, but let's just say 5 dudes from a combat, We're now scrying 4 times, so we're really setting up our draws. Tribute to the World Tree is just great. 3 green, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card if its power is 3 or greater, otherwise put 2 1/1 counters on it. All of our Saprolings are going to enter as 3/3s, which is pretty great, and anything that is bigger than 3 power, we just draw a card, which is great either way. But it's really good for the +2, the 2 counters. Going into lands, we're really doing nothing crazy. Castle Garenbrig enters tapped unless we have a forest, which is almost always. Taps for a green, pay 4 mana, tap it, add 6 only for creatures. A little bit of ramp. Fountain Port's good, tap it for a colorless, pay 2, sack a token, draw a card so we can sacrifice a Saproling to draw a card. Pay 3 mana, tap it, make a fish. We can do that if we want, or just pay 4 mana for a treasure. We're probably just going to be doing it for a token, sacrificing a token and drawing a card and making a treasure, just if we have the excess mana. We don't really need to make a fish because all of our guys are going to enter untapped anyway when we attack with Shroofus, which is still fine. Nykthos is adds for your devotion to green. We're a monocolor deck, so it's almost always going to be a lot. Rogue's Passage to make a big creature unblockable until end of turn. 3 Tree City, since we make a lot of Saprolings, we can pay 2 mana, and it's basically just Nykthos for Saprolings and just tribal. So we're going to tap it for we're going to pay 2 mana and then get as much green mana equal to the number of Saprolings we have, which is going to be a lot. War Room is nice. Pay 3 life, pay 3 mana, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity and draw a card. It's just 1 life because we're mono green, so paying 3 mana and a life to draw a card and instant speed's pretty good. And then finally, we have 29 Forest, which I believe totals us up to be about 35 lands, which is pretty average because we do have some small guys, we do have some combat tricks, we do have some big guys. So the 35 lands, maybe 36 with MDFCs. I don't even think we have one, but I think I'm pretty confident on 35 is the number. It should be good. Thank you guys for watching. Get all the cards you need from the link down below. And as always, like, comment, and especially subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys next time.